नमस्कार। आप सभी का लेक्चर बाय फैकल्टी ऑफ द मंथ ऑफ MDNMY की इस श्रृंखला में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आज हमारे बीच द आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन पर बात करने के लिए डॉक्टर सुमन राठौर मैम का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैम, आपका मैं हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ। जैसा कि आप सभी को पता है कि हमारे संस्थान के निदेशक महोदय डॉक्टर ईश्वर वी बसव रेड्डी सर ने ये एक नई पहल शुरुआत और जो हमें किसी एक विषय पे जो शोध से या किसी अन्य विषय पर हमें एक व्याख्यान देते हैं। इसी क्रम में आज हमारे हम किसी भी कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत प्रार्थना के साथ करते हैं, तो आइए प्रार्थना से की शुरुआत करें। ओम सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। जैसा कि मैंने बताया कि आज द आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे बीच डॉक्टर सुमन कार्यरत हैं। मैडम ने अपनी उच्च शिक्षा सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ राजस्थान से प्राप्त की है। तो अधिक समय ना लेते हुए मैं मैम को आमंत्रित करूंगी कि आज हमारे दर्शकों को द आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन, जो कि एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, उस पे जानकारी दें और अपने अनुभवों को और अपने ज्ञान बिंदुओं को हमारे दर्शकों के साथ साझा करें। मैम।
Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening, all. Before Dr. Ishwar V. Baswareddy, and I thank Dr. Vandana for the introduction. I thank the director for giving me this opportunity to present a lecture here. Let me share the screen with you. Okay, is the art of conversation. Okay, so why are we lights? Okay, so we all know what conversing is, but then the thing is, we know that we communicate with our friends, our families, our colleagues, with a vegetable vendor, with a flower vendor, okay, with our attendants, everybody. The thing is, there are certain aspects which with time we are forgetting. The thing is, we are losing touch with the values or the core values of conversation. The thing is, we need to, through conversation, we get to know what the person is. We get to know what an individual is as a person. Okay, through conversation, we show our consideration, we show care, we show respect and kindness towards the other person. And all these things act as a fuel to power relationships. And this makes us as a society for the better functioning of it. Okay. One of the most prominent works in the British English by Bernard Shaw, Pygmalion. Okay, so its adaptation also took place. Okay, one was Professor Higgins, other is Professor Pickering. Okay, so they both, Professor Pickering came as a guest to Professor Higgins in London, and while they were conversing, a flower girl came there to sell some flowers, and after listening to her accent, to what she was saying, Professor Higgins at the very moment stated to which place she belonged. Okay, and right after listening to that, that girl got scared, and she thought that maybe this guy is some spy. Asked Professor Pickering for help. Okay, then Professor Pickering informed her that it's not something related to spying or something. this is something related to phonetics, related to language. Okay, and then Professor Higgins and Professor Pickering, they both said that he can transform this girl into a duchess if he trains her for 3 months. Okay, and then they laughed this conversation off, and then they all leave for their places. Now, this conversation strikes a chord in the mind of that flower girl. Okay, so what happens the very next morning? The girl reaches to Professor Higgins' doors, and then she reminds Professor Pickering was also there. So what happened? While the girl was requesting Professor Higgins to take her as a student, Professor Higgins was denying. And while all the conversation idea, and he gave that girl as a challenge to Professor Higgins and asked him if he could transform her into a duchess in 3 months, as he was stating the previous night. Okay, so Professor Higgins thought for a moment, and he took that as a challenge and started the training of the girl. The girl wanted this training because she wanted to work at a florist shop. Okay. As a duchess, then he would pay for what all expenses that takes place while during this training period. Okay, so this all takes place, and eventually this girl gets to learn how to converse in a manner the duchesses or the elite society converses. Okay, so during the training only, Professor Higgins tells her that the okay, so what happens when they go for an event? So there, while talking about climate and health, she she flabbers. Okay, and eventually what happens that turns out to be a disastrous event. So the thing is, it's not about the subjects only, though the subjects during those times of weather and of health were quite safe, were on safer side. But then the thing is, it's not about the subject, it's about the way you converse, what you are talking about, how you are articulating your words, how considerate and respectful you are towards others, how thoughtful you are. Oh, are there in conversation. So, okay, so the fundamentals of conversation. First is think before you speak. So the thing is, whenever you're attempting to converse with someone, you need to think what you are going to say. It's not just about the topic that you are subject be thoughtful. If you are thinking before speaking or uttering any word, it's being thoughtful or being considerate towards the other person. It's about knowing that how your words are going to affect and influence the other person or all the other individuals who are involved in the conversation. Okay, so next is listen. So the other most important thing where the good conversational speak, they give a very good amount of time in that. Okay, and then listen. They listen very carefully what the other person is stating. That is being in the moment. If you aren't listening, you won't be able to get what the other person is saying and how to respond to that. Might have encountered that there is an interview which is taking place, and then the interviewer has asked some question, and to that question the interviewee has responded with some beautiful information, but then the interviewer comes up with another question which is no connection with the answer which the interviewee has responded with. Okay, so that makes us think that this thing is not linked with what the speaker has said. Okay, be able to formulate his question. He'll be able to carry forward the conversation in a manner which is sequential and which is coherent. Okay, and which the other person would also be able to follow, or the ones who are listening would also be able to follow. Okay, and then the next is personal space. When you are conversing with people, there are times wherein what happens, we forget we forget to provide a personal space to the individual. Okay, so what happens? You need you have to have a gap of a hand or about 18 inches with the other person. Okay, otherwise it will irritate the other person. Okay, now interruption. Let's say there is a group who are having a conversation, 3-4 people who are having a conversation amongst themselves. Okay, so and you join in. Okay, and after joining in, there's something they are talking about, and that topic is something in which you are quite interested, and you interrupt. So that is something you shouldn't do, because the context, what there might be something interesting which the other person, there might be some very interesting story which the other in the chain. Okay, and that might irritate the other individual. So what you can do is you can wait for the other person to finish, and then you may start speaking. Okay, and if there is something very important which needs to be intimidated or to be informed in between, what you need to do is you need to first apologize, and then whatever information you have, provide that information, and then pull yourself back. Okay. Now, the next thing is body language. So when you are conversing, body language plays a very important role. See, sad face, then how is it going to convey the same expression? So what you need to do is you need to learn to sync in your body with what all you are speaking. Okay, so in body language, the first thing which comes to our mind is posture. So when you are communicating with the person, whether you are sitting or whether you are standing, make sure that you are not slouching or something. You have the right position. You have straight back. Okay. When you were children, or when you were studying in schools, you might have heard your teacher saying, "Sit up straight." It's because when you are slouching, it seems. Okay, so when you are conversing with the other person, you are interacting with the person because you are finding something interesting in there. Okay, something is there in that person that has taken you in. That your posture also convey that. Next is facial expression and gestures. Okay, so there are times wherein facial expressions play a huge role. Okay, so you might have heard in cinema, the language of facial expressions and gestures is used here. Okay, so what? Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, so the next thing is facial expressions. So communicate in the same manner. So what you can do is you need to ensure that your facial expressions are in sync with that. Okay, and your gestures also communicate a lot. See, what you need to do is the way you use your hands, the way you use your facial expression, that communicate different message. Okay, so you need to make sure that you use them in a manner that are in sync with what you are communicating through words. Next is eye contact. Whenever you are communicating with anybody, make sure that you have proper eye contact. Okay, that what you have been talking about, what you are conversing about. Okay, along with this, also ensure that you are not staring at the individual. that will make the other person uncomfortable. Okay. Next is pointing. Okay, so there are times wherein what happens, let's say we are in a gathering and then we are talking about the third person and then we want to refer to that person and that person is there. So what happens, there are times when people point to them with a finger or with a hand. So you must not do that, because what happens, then that person do not uncomfortable. Okay, so communication or conversation is all about making the other person feel comfortable, being considerate towards other person. We have a cohabitable. Next is voice. While communicating, we need to ensure that our voice is also at the right pace, right volume, and it has the right tone. Okay, so let's say you want to request someone for something. So your voice should reflect that. Okay, the volume of your voice should be in a shouldn't the volume of your voice shouldn't be high. If the pitch of your volume is high, it would as if you are ordering the other person. Okay. Uncomfortable, or the person, this would lead to a discomforting situation. Okay, wherein the other person wouldn't get what you are actually trying to convey. Okay, so it has to be in a balanced manner. Okay, next is the tone of your voice. The tone of your voice reflects a lot by let's say there's something wherein you want to question somebody, and if you haven't let's say you want to know if the other person has that book. So what you would do is, hey Girish, do you have that book with you? So what you would do is the tone of your question would remind the other person that you have that book with you. Okay, but there are times wherein someone speaks in a monotonous manner. Okay, and if you have that monotonous tone or that tone which is not applicable to the kind of conversation that is taking place, it will deviate the other person. It would not take the interest of the other person. Okay, that this is a boring lecture, or this is something which isn't very interesting enough. Okay, then the rate of your speech, it refers to the speed of your conversation. If you are then the other person might not be able to follow you. Okay, so the pace of your speech should also be balanced. Okay. Okay, so the next is, see, you while conversing, while ensuring that your voice is in a balanced manner, you need to ensure the kind of words that you use. Okay, so peppering your speech with fillers. There are times wherein we do not know what words to use. So there are times people use word fillers like like. So totally actually. Okay, so when there is this repetition of these words, they actually do not interest the other person. Okay, then misusing grammar. Have a good conversation doesn't mean to have a good command over English or any specific language. It's about having having a command over whatever language you are able to speak in that language. It's being considerate. It's more about what you have as a person. Okay. Then there are certain things which you need to remember other than what all we discussed so far. So first is know when to stop. So most of us have seen the movie Atithi Kab Ghar Jaoge. Okay, so the guests arrive at their house, and then they just wait for the guests to leave. Okay, so it is quite similar to not knowing. Person would get irritated eventually and would pray for you to leave. Okay, then and that sparks your interest, and then you suddenly get into the conversation. So please don't do that. Okay. Then next is avoid repetition. So we discussed this in the previous slide as well. If you are continuously repeating few certain words or sentences, don't do that. Avoid that. Okay. Then don't whisper. See, let's say we are standing in a group and we are having a conversation, and suddenly person A whispers in the ear. They are talking about the subject of their conversation, and whispers would be them. Or maybe they want to share something funny or something important what they might be discussing in whispers with everybody. They are not respected enough. Uh, they are not privileged enough to know that whenever you are conversing, slang has now become a part of our lives. But make sure that you use them in an appropriate situation. Not use them in a professional environment. You need to use them wisely in a space wherein you have the person who are your colleagues, who are your family members or friends. Okay, now next is avoid playing teacher. See, there are times wherein you know that someone has said something wrong. Okay, maybe grammatically or maybe whatever that may be, and you are sitting in a group of 4 or 5 people, and then you start correcting the other person. Then you sit with 4 or 5 other people, and then you start correcting. Want to correct the other person, if you are actually concerned about the other person, you would do that in person. You wouldn't do that in a group. Okay, because otherwise that would seem intimidating, and the other person may feel insulted. So avoid playing teacher. Conversational pitfalls. There are certain topic. See, you might have come across instances wherein there's some wedding taking place. There's one person who starts talking about it, or who starts talking about divorces. So what kind of responses would it generate? What kind of atmosphere would it create? So we need to ensure the kind of conversation we raise. We need to ensure that they are positive. Okay. Next is not reciprocating. There are times when someone approaches you. You may to do is, if you cannot talk to that person, what you need to do is you need to now, or something is there which you are handling at this moment and talk later. Okay. Then criticism and gossip. Criticism and gossip, those people who criticize other person or gossip about other people, they are just wasting their time in talking about other person who has a lot other things to do in. Who provide a lot of information about themselves in just one conversation. They'll tell you stories about their grandparents, they'll tell you stories about their nana nani, they'll tell you stories about their colleagues, finances, and whatnot. Okay, and we do not even need that. So stop yourself from communicating too much information, providing too much information to others. Okay. And I would like to end influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. So if we have the power of speech, we have the power of voice. We can raise our voice for issues, for things that matter for the society. So if we have power, we have that power. Okay, if we have that privilege, then we must use that to change lives. And that what thought do you wish to create when you converse with the people. So with that note, I would like to end my presentation for today. Thank you all for your time and patience.
थैंक यू सो मच मैम, आपने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन के बारे में हमारे दर्शकों को बताया। कुछ प्रश्न हैं हमारे कमेंट सेक्शन में, अगर आप किसी एक ने प्रश्न किया है कि अगर अभी लेक्चर दिया कि हम अपने कन्वर्सेशन को या हमारी जो प्रेजेंटेशन है उसको प्रभावशाली किस तरीके से बना सकते हैं, तो इस पे अगर 2 वाक्यों में या कुछ चंद शब्दों में इसको
if you are conversing in a manner, if you want to converse in a manner which shows your consideration or kindness or consideration to the person, what you need to do is you need to be respectful towards the other person. You need to have self-respect and have the same respect for the other person. And the most important thing is be yourself, what you are as a person, because conversations aren't something which are planned. They take regular habits. We need to ensure that we have consideration for the other person in ourselves as an individual, as a person.
ओके, थैंक यू मैम। एक और प्रश्न था कि अपनी बॉडी लैंग्वेज, जैसे आज कहते हैं ना कि बॉडी लैंग्वेज भी एक मेजर रोल प्ले करती है कन्वर्सेशन में या जो संप्रेषण हम करना चाहते हैं विचारों का, तो उसमें अगर हम सुधार करना चाहें तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए?
See, what you can do is, while you are, there are times where before you, okay, and try practicing before the mirror. Try noticing how you stand, how you sit, and then there are times when people around you also help sometimes. So take guidance from them. So just free yourself from the bounds if you have any, that there is some, be confident of who you are. See, having a good conversation, thoughtful, if you have respect for yourself and for others, you'll have that in your body language, in your speech.
प्लस हमें ये भी देखना पड़ेगा कि हम क्या कन्वर्स करना चाह रहे हैं, हम क्या संदेश सामने वाले तक पहुंचाना चाह रहे हैं, और उसके पहले जैसे कि आपने कहा कि दूसरे के प्रति भी आदर सम्मान के साथ हमें अपनी कन्वर्सेशन को फ्रेम करना चाहिए, हम क्या संदेश देना चाह रहे हैं ये भी हमारे दिमाग में रहना चाहिए। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मैम, हमारे सभी दर्शकों को आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन पे इतना अच्छा व्याख्यान देने के लिए। आजकल के समय में ये बहुत ही झगड़ा भी करवा देती है, झगड़े सुलझा भी देती है, तो आर्ट ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन पे इतना अच्छा व्याख्यान देने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। साथ ही मैं हमारे संस्थान के निदेशक महोदय डॉक्टर ईश्वर बसव रेड्डी सर का भी हार्दिक धन्यवाद। दर्शकों के सामने, हमारे स्टूडेंट्स के सामने रखने का उनका भी हार्दिक धन्यवाद, और हमारी तकनीकी टीम का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो उन्होंने इस आयोजन को सफल बनाने धन्यवाद जो हमारे साथ इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़े, और सभी को धन्यवाद देते हुए और अंत में कार्यक्रम का समापन शांति पाठ के साथ करेंगे। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि भवे, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति।